Oh, honey, let me pull up this old rocker and lean in close, 'cause what I'm about to share still aches in my bones like a winter chill that won't quit. It was back in the fall of 1942, right here in our little speck of a town in Ohio, where the cornfields stretch out forever under that big blue sky. I was just 8 years old, a scrawny thing with pigtails and freckles chasing fireflies come dusk. But that one morning, everything shattered like fine china hitting the kitchen floor. My pa, the man who could fix any tractor or soothe a spooked horse, with a gentle word, he got his draft papers calling him up to fight them. Nazis over in Europe. I remember it clear as yesterday, standing in the doorway, my ma wringing her apron, tears carving rivers down her cheeks while packed his kit bag, humming an old hymn to keep us steady. "Now, Ellie darling," he said, kneeling down to my level, his calloused hand cupping my chin. "You mind your ma and keep the home fires burning. I'll be home before the first snow flies, promising you the moon if I have to." But oh, honey, those words were just smoke. They couldn't hide the fear gnawing at us, all knowing boys from farms just like ours weren't coming back in one piece or at all. We waved him off from the porch, watching that dusty truck rumble down the gravel road till it was a speck on the horizon, and then the real heartbreak crashed over us like a summer squall. Ma tried to keep things normal, baking biscuits from what flour we had left and mending socks by the oil lamp, but the ration books came, and with them the gnawing emptiness of worry. Letters trickled in at first, full of talk about foxholes and French villages, but then they slowed to a drip, and the telegrams started circling like vultures in town. Mrs. Harlan next door lost her boy to a sniper, her wail carrying on the wind for weeks, and I hugged my rag doll tight, pretending it was Pa coming back any minute. Nights were the worst, lying awake listening to Ma pace the floorboards, her sobs muffled into her pillow, while I clutched the locket he'd given me, a tiny silver thing with his photo inside, staring back brave but tired. "Please, God, bring him home." I'd whisper, counting stars through the window, wondering if he was looking at the same ones over some muddy battlefield far from our cozy quilt and cornbread. But honey, the true gut punch, the one that twisted my young heart into knots, didn't come from the war's roar across the ocean. No, it hit right here in our own backyard, hiding in the shadows of what family really means. See, Pa had pulled me aside the night before he left, sitting me on his knee by the stove's glow, his voice low like he was sharing the recipe for the world's best apple pie. "Ellie girl, there's something you gotta know about your big brother Tommy," he said, his eyes misty in the firelight. "He ain't mine by blood, but he's mine all the same, understand." My mouth fell open, shock hitting me harder than a bee sting, 'cause Tommy was 13, already tall and lanky, helping with the chores like he'd sprung from Pa's own rib. Turns out my back when she was courting Pa had a wild summer fling with a smooth-talking salesman passing through from Tennessee, all charm and fancy suits, leaving her with child before Pa swept in and claimed them both without a fuss. In our holier-than-thou town where gossip spread faster than wildfire, that secret could have scorched us all, folks whispering about loose morals and broken vows, shunning us at church socials or worse. Pa raised Tommy fierce as his own, teaching him to bait a hook and mend a fence, never letting on the truth, but swearing me to silence for the family's sake. Darling loves what counts, not some paper pedigree. I carried that burden like a sack of feed, too heavy for my skinny shoulders, swearing on my Bible I'd never breathe a word, even as the war raged on tearing more families asunder. Around 500 words into this tale, and here's the peak that still leaves me shaking. It was Christmas Eve 43, the snow piling up outside while we huddled round a scrawny pine tree strung with popcorn garlands. Ma had scrimped for a single orange each, the most exotic thing we'd seen in months, and we were singing Silent Night when a knock thundered at the door. There stood a soldier in crisp uniform, hat in hand, delivering Pa's effects, a bloodstained letter and his dog tags clinking cold against the tin. "Missing in action, presumed Ki," he said, voice cracking before bolting into the night, leaving us in stunned silence. I ran to my room, burying my face in the pillow, howling like a coyote under the moon, 'cause Pa's promise, the one about jackrabbits and snowflakes, had all crumbled to dust. Tommy, he held Ma while she rocked, wordless, the secret Pa entrusted now burning in me hotter than ever. How could I tell him now with grief fresh as a wound? That night, as the wind howled, I vowed to be strong like Pa to guard our fragile nest through the storms ahead, little knowing the heartaches waiting just over the hill. Life's funny that way, honey. It don't give you time to mend before slinging the next curveball, but oh, the lessons it carves deep into your soul. As the war's shadow stretched long over our little corner of Ohio, I learned quick that life don't pause for a broken heart. It just plows ahead expecting you to keep up or get left in the dust. With Pa gone presumed lost in some far-off ditch, we three, my Tommy and me, clung together like burrs on a wool sock, making do in that creaky farmhouse where the walls seemed to whisper his absence every morning. Ma turned into a whirlwind of grit, rising before the rooster to tend the garden, planting victory veggies like tomatoes and beans that stretched our meager rations further than a politician's promise. Tommy at 13 stepped up big time, taking on Pa's chores, chopping wood and milking the cow, his young shoulders broadening under the weight while I trailed behind fetching buckets or feeding the hens, feeling like a big girl for the first time. Church became our anchor. Every Sunday, the preacher booming about sacrificing for the boys overseas and the ladies auxiliary organizing scrap drives where we'd collect tin cans and rubber tires, turn them into bullets and tires for Jeeps. I remember one drive in particular, around 1,000 words into my rambling now. The whole town turned out to the schoolyard piles of junk towering like mountains and me contributing my favorite tin toy truck, saving the enemy one rusty wheel at a time. Folks clapped and called me a patriot, but inside that secret power share burned like a coal in my pocket, reminding me our family's fight was quieter, more tangled than any battlefield glory. Those early days blurred into a rhythm of want and wonder, school letting out early so we could bond drives collecting fat for explosives or paper for propaganda posters, plastered everywhere from the general store to the barbershop. I was in 3rd grade, Miss Prattley, our teacher, a stern widow with a bun tight as her rules drilling us on war bonds and the 4 freedoms Roosevelt preached on the radio, her voice crackling through the parlor like a friend from afar. We'd sing Yankee Doodle at recess, marching in lines, pretending to be soldiers, but my mind wandered to Pa's letters, the last ones full of jokes about French fries, tasting nothing like ours and promising chocolate bars bigger than my head. Tommy protected me fierce, walking me home past the creek where we'd skip stones, dreaming of peacetime fish fries and baseball games with the fellas from school. Ma sewed us clothes from flour sacks, turning feedback patterns into dresses for me, bloomers for Tommy, all the while humming tunes like Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy to keep spirits high. One evening as the sun dipped low, painting the fields gold, she sat us down by the kitchen table, spreading out her hope chest, a treasure trove of lace doilies and yellowed photos from her courting days. Your pa loved this place, loved us enough to fight for it, she said, her eyes far off, and I nodded, swallowing hard, the truth about Tommy bubbling up, but I bit my tongue knowing some secrets were heavier than war itself. As spring thawed into summer 44, the home front heated up with victory gardens blooming wild, our backyard a patchwork of carrots, potatoes, and corn that fed us through the lean months when sugar was rarer than a blue moon. I took to helping at the diner after school, wiping counters and serving coffee to the truckers, passing through their tales of ration lines in Cleveland and black market deals for nylons, making my head spin with the world's wideness. Tommy got a paper route delivering the Cincinnati Enquirer full of headlines about D-Day and the push into Normandy, each edition clutched like a lifeline, hoping for Pa's name in the survivor lists. School dances were few and far between, but one Friday night around 1,200 words, now the Grange Hall lit up for a USO-style shindig, soldiers on leave from Camp Sheridan twirling us girls in jitterbug steps while the band blared in the mood. I was too young to dance proper, but Tommy snuck me in promising we'd be good. And there under the paper streamers, I felt a spark of normalcy laughing as he tripped over his own feet, showing off for a neighbor girl named Betty with curls like Marilyn Monroe. That night, walking home under a blanket of stars, he confided his fears. Ellie, what if I gotta go next like Pa? And I squeezed his hand, the secret twist in my gut, because if truth be told, he wasn't Pa's blood, but that didn't make him any less. My brother worth fighting for. Life's little joys flickered through the gloom like fireflies on a July Eve, picnics by the Olentangy River, where Ma packed egg salad sandwiches on homegrown bread, and we'd chase each other till the fireflies lit up, winking back at our giggles. Christmas that year without Pa was sparse, just a few handmade ornaments and a shared tangerine, but Tommy carved me a wooden doll from a fence post that smiled crooked but true, and I treasured it more than any store-bought fancy. Ma read us stories from the Bible, David, and Goliath tales of underdogs winning out, reminding us our fight was part of something bigger, the American way, holding fast against tyranny. I started keeping a diary, scribbling in pencil stubs about schoolyard crushes on Billy the Redhead, who shared his comic books and dreams of being a pilot like the aces in the newsreels. Around 1,500 words into this heartfelt yarn, and here's a peek that yanked the rug right out from under me, shattering the fragile piece we'd patched together. It was Vay Day, Europe's war ending with church bells pealing and folks hugging strangers in the streets, horns honking and flags waving wild, but for us, it rang hollow because a letter arrived from the War Department confirming Tha's fate, dead in the Ardennes, frozen stiff in the Battle of the Bulge. His body never recovered, just a Purple Heart sent in a plain box. I collapsed right there in the kitchen floor, dust in her hair like snow, Tommy catching her. As I stood frozen, the weight of it crushing my chest worse than any ration cut. That night we burned Pa's last letter in the stove ashes, curling up the chimney like his spirit flying free. But the grief settled heavy, teaching me young that joy and sorrow dance close as partners in a two-step. With Pa's loss etched deep, we leaned harder on neighbors, the Mrs. Jenkins down the road, inviting us for Sunday suppers. Her pot roast a godsend when our pantry echoed empty. Tommy grew into a young man tall as an oak, helping with harvest for extra cornmeal. His silence about the future speaking volumes, while I blossomed into a teenager curious about the world beyond our fence. High school brought new horizons, biology classes, dissecting frogs, and history lessons on the Constitution that made me proud of this land of free folk. Even as the war dragged into 45, Japan still fighting fierce. I joined the girls' auxiliary knitting scarves for the Pacific Theater, my needles clicking late nights by Ma's side, her stories of growing up in the Depression, painting pictures of breadlines and Hoovervilles that mirrored our own scrimps. One secret almost slipped around 1,700 words when Betty cornered me at the soda fountain, asking why Tommy looked nothing like Pa, his dark hair and southern twang, odd for our fair-haired clan. Family traits, skip generations, honey. I fibbed quick as a cat, changing the subject to the latest Andy Hardy flick, playing at the Bijou, escaping into make-believe where daddies always came home heroes. Ma noticed my strain pulling me aside, one Ellie, what's eating you, child? And I shook my strain pulling me aside, one Ellie, what's eating you, child? And I shook my head, burying Pa's confession, deeper knowing it was her cross too heavy for sharing yet. The war's end came like a sigh of relief. VJ Day exploding with fireworks and kisses in Times Square, newsreeling into our parlor radio announcing the bomb drops and surrender. Our town threw a parade, tractors decked in red, white, and blue marching bands, tooting and folks cheering till hoarse. But Ma just held us close, whispering, too late for us, but peace at last. With the fighting done, life eased a tad, jobs opening up for vets, though Pa's spot stayed empty, a ghost at the table. Tommy landed work at the mill, sweeping floors, dreaming of engineering school on the guy bill, while I finished high school dating a boy named Hank, who drove a shiny Pontiac and talked big about college in Columbus. Summers we canned peaches from the orchard, swelling our cellar, and winters brought sledding down Hickory Hill, laughs echoing pure as new snow. Around 2,000 words now, and another peak built slow, then crashed hard, twisting my world anew. It was summer 47, hot as blazes, and I was 16, sweet on Hank, sneaking kisses behind the barn when Ma called me in pale as milk, holding a faded photo of that Tennessee salesman, Tommy's real pa. Turns out he'd written her from Memphis claiming he'd heard of Pa's death through Army channels, begging to meet his boy, offering money or whatever to make amends. Ma burned the letter, tears falling. He left us once, he don't deserve a second chance, but I saw the crack in her armor, the regret of that long ago summer fling, now haunting like a bad dream. I confronted Tommy by the creek, his face crumpling as I spilled Pa's secret for the first time. Your family, Tommy, blood or no? I said, hugging him fierce while he wrestled the notion of another father out there, a stranger with ties stronger than we'd known. That revelation rocked us, binding us tighter in our shared silence, choosing our patchwork kin over some ghost from the past, the resilience of small-town love, holding firm against the pull of what-ifs. As I stepped into womanhood, the early years shaped me soft, yet sturdy, learning to mend fences, both literal and in the heart. Hank proposed under the harvest moon, a simple gold band from his gramps' pocket, and we wed in 48, the church full of wildflowers and neighbors toasting with bootleg lemonade. Ma walked me down the aisle, Tommy, best man, his grin wide, hid in the shadows of his parentish question we never spoke of again. Our first home, a tiny bungalow on Maple Street where I learned to keep house baking pies from scratch and waiting tables at the diner to help with bills. Tommy headed off to Ohio State Books under arm, chasing that engineer dream, sending letters full of big city wonders, while Ma sold the farm, moving in with us. Her stories, now my bedtime lore. Around 2,500 words, and here's the third peak, a youthful heartache that tested my budding strength. Hank got drafted for Korea just months after the wedding, leaving me alone in our nest, belly swelling with our first child, Rosie. The night he shipped out, we stood on the platform train, whistle mournful as a lonesome dove, his uniform crisp hat brim low. I'll ride every day, Ellie, be brave like your pa. He promised kissing me deep before the cars lurched forward, carrying him to uncertainty. Nights blurred into worry, patching the floor, hand on my tummy, whispering to the baby about daddy's coming home, the war machine grinding on, reminding me history's cycle cruel, but the human spirit tougher still. Through it all, that early life forged me, honey, teaching that from heartbreak soil, hope can sprout if you tend it right with open hands and faithful heart. Honey, with Hank off to Korea, leaving me standing there on that windy platform, watching the train fade into the haze, I felt the world's weight settle on my shoulders, heavier than a sack of wet corn. Our little bungalow on Maple Street turned echoey quick, just me and the growing bump. That was Rosie kicking like she knew trouble was brewing. Mom moved in full time, her hands busy with quilting squares from Pa's old shirts while I scrubbed floors at the diner, slinging plates of meatloaf and coffee to loggers and factory hands, their chatter full of worry over the Red Scare and that police action overseas. Money was tight as a drum ration and lingered in spirit, gas coupons still in our wallets, and I pawned Granny's brooch for crib linens, praying Hank's allotments would cover the dock bills. Nights I pored over his letters, postmarked Poussin, talking of rice paddies and buddy banter, but between the lines I read the fear, the homesickness gnawing at him like termites in old wood. Tommy visited from college weekends, driving that beat-up Ford, his engineering books peeling up on the table. Sharon laughs to chase the gloom, but his eyes held shadows from that salesman's ghost letter still unopened in Ma's drawer. Life chugged on brutal, but bearable till around 3,500 words into this sorrowful saga, when the first real peak slammed us like a nor'easter. Word came in 51, Hank wounded bad shrapnel, tearing through his leg in some hill skirmish near the 30. The telegram hit like lightning, Ma reading it aloud, her voice shaking, seriously injured, stable, but stable meant nothing when I was heavy with child miles from any base hospital. I hitched a ride to Columbus for the Red Cross, waiting room patching floors worn by 1,000 worrying wives, praying to every saint I could name while Rosie tumbled inside, urgent as her pa's fight. He pulled through docks, patching him with pins and prayers, shipping him stateside, but the boy I married came home, a man changed, limping on a cane, eyes haunted by what he'd seen, turned into whiskey some nights to drown the flashbacks, leaving me to hold our new family together with threadbare hope and stubborn love. That Korea scar opened the floodgates, honey struggles peeling up like cordwood ready for a bonfire of the soul. Rosie arrived squalling pink and perfect in 52, a bundle of joy that lit our dim days, but Hank's leg kept him from the factory line's bosses. He ran able-bodied fellas, living him tinkering in the garage, fixing neighbors' radios for pennies. We had little Jimmy next to Towhead with his pa's grin, born in 54, and Tommy Jr., after my brother a Spitfire with dark curls and a twang that snuck in when he hollered playing cowboys in the yard. The 50s boomed on the radio, Elvis crooning and suburb dreams, but for us it was hand-to-mouth, my helping with the babies while our waitress double shifts, feet aching in sensible shoes. Hank tried night school for mechanics, but the pain flared bad, keeping him home, his temper short as a fuse snapping over spilled milk or late bills. Tommy graduated engineering, landing a job in Dayton designing bridges, his letters full of pride, but he steered clear of family gatherings, eyes flicking to that drawer where Ma kept the past locked tight. Around 4,000 words. Now the next peak brewed slow, then erupted fierce. It was summer 58, the economy humming, but our marriage fraying like old rope when Hank confessed over corn on the cob one evening, porch swing creaking under us. Ellie, I did wrong over there, he said, voice gravelly, a nurse in the hospital tent. We got close, too close when the shells were flying, and I was scared spitless. My heart dropped like a stone, and the well guilt and rage mixing hot as stove coals, 'cause I'd guarded Pa's secret faithful while he strayed in the foxholes. But seeing his face crumpled, begging forgiveness, I saw my own flaws, the lies by omission, and instead of walking out, I took his hand. We're both scarred, honey wars twist folks, but love can straighten them if we let it. That night we cried it out, forgiveness flowing slow as molasses mending the tear, though the whiskey bottle stayed close, a demon. We wrestled together through the years. As the 60s dawned, the world spun wild civil rights marches on the TV and Beatles tunes blasting from car radios, but our small town clung to its ways. Church suppers and potlucks holding back the tide. Jimmy grew into a teen full of fire, read MLK speeches and questioning the status quo, while Tommy Jr. tagged along mischief in his steps, stealing smokes from the corner store. Hank found steadier work at the auto plant assembling Pontiacs, his limp easing with time, but the bottle lingered, led into brawls at the VFW hall where vets swapped war stories louder than needed. Ma passed quiet in 62, her heart giving out after a spell of flu, leaving me seeping through her things, finding that salesman's letter yellowed and unanswered, a pang of what ifs hitting hard. I burned it in the sink, tears sizzling on the hot plate, deciding some ghost best laid to rest, keeping Tommy's truth buried deep to spare him the hunt. Rosie blossomed into a young lady, that and a boy from the high school band, her laughter filling the house like birdsong, but around 4,500 words. Here's a peek that shattered our fragile calm, wrenching the family to its knees. It was 64, the Beatles invading our airwaves when Tommy Jr., 14, already sneaking out, came home black and blue from a rumble with some older kids behind the diner fists flying over a stolen bike. But the real blow, he confessed through split lips, breathing hard on the couch. Ma, I got a girl in trouble. School nurse said it's a baby coming and her folks are shipping her off to relatives. My world tilted, Rosie crying in the kitchen, Hank pitching furious, but I hushed them all, hugging my boy tight. We'll face it together, son, no running, no shaming. This house. Turns out the girl, a quiet lass from church, lost the baby weeks later, a mercy and tragedy wrapped tight, but it bonded us fierce. Tommy Jr. working odd jobs to make good learning responsibility the hard way while I whispered prayers for forgiveness, echoing my own hidden burdens. That scare taught us love covers a multitude of sins if you pour it out generous like gravy on biscuits, resilience bubbling up from the mess. The decade turned darker, Vietnam escalate and draft ladders on the news. Like a grim bingo game pulling boys our way. Jimmy at 19, idealistic as they come join the protests marching in Columbus, chanting, hey, 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 LBJ, how many kids did you kill today? His posters plastered on the fridge while Hank grumbled patriotic to the bone from his wars. We argued round the supper table forks, clatter and ideals clashing, but family held the line till the peak at 5,000 words, a heartbreak sharper than any shrapnel. August 68, telegram boy on the porch, sweat beating under his cap, handing over the yellow slip, regret to inform killed in action near Khe Sanh. Jimmy's name stark as death stepping on a mine during Tet Offensive. Crumpled right there on the welcome mat, Rosie screaming, Hank silent as stone staring at the wall for days. The house thick with grief like fog off the river. Funeral was a blur flag draped coffin at the VFW, taps echo on mournful neighbors bringing pies we couldn't eat. Tommy drove in from Dayton holding me as I wailed, why my boy, Lord, why? The secret about his own blood bubbling up, tempting me to spill. But I swallowed it down, knowing one loss was plenty without unraveling more threads. Hank dove deeper into the bottle, losing shifts at the plant, temper flaring over nothing, while I leaned on the church ladies, their prayer chains a lifeline through the numb days. Resilience flickered faint, me starting a scrapbook of Jimmy's letters, snipping his protest photos to remember the fire, not just the fall, teaching Rosie and Tommy Jr. that's standing for something, even if it costs us the American grit we all carry. Struggles deepened into the 70s, oil embargo, 73 prices, skyrocketing gas lines, snaking like dragons, breathing fire on our budgets. Hank got laid off the plant, slowing down foreign cars, flooding the market, leaving him patching the garage tools, idle his pride, bruised worse than his leg. We sold the Pontiac for a rusty Chevy scraps from the diner, barely covering groceries. I sewing patches on the boys' jeans till my eyes crossed. Rosie married young to a teacher named Bob Sweet as pie, settling in a trailer nearby, popping out grandbabies that toddled over for cookies, her nursing dreams on hold for diapers and dishes. Tommy Jr. straightened some, joining the Army Reserves, dodging full deployment, but the guilt of Jimmy's path hung heavy, making him quiet, studious at the community college, chasing accounting. Around 5,500 words, the next peak hit like thunder in a drought. A blizzard 76 burying the town drifts higher than the mailbox isolating us for days. Power out, fridge empty, and Hank's cough turning wet. I trekked through snow to the neighbors borrowing canned beans. Rosie shoveling a path for the doc who said pneumonia settling in Hank's lungs from the damp cold. Fevers raged delirious, he muttered Korea ghosts and family debts. I nursing him with broth and rags on his brow, whispering, fight it, darling, like you fought the commies. Church folk prayed extra, the reserve sending Tommy Jr. with supplies, and he pulled through wheezing but alive, teaching me again that small axe stitched the wounds community, the thread holding our frayed quilt together. The recession bit harder, factories shuttering, cousins moving south for work. Our home, a haven for the down and out boarders in the spare room paying rent and chores. Through it all, secrets simmered Hank, never knowing about Tommy, the salesman's shadow fading, but the weight of unspoken truths, a constant companion, pushing me to forgive, faster love, louder in this turbulent America where heartaches come cheap, but hope's the real treasure worth scraping for. By the late 70s, the struggles mellowed to a dull roar, inflation eating our savings like rust on tin. But we adapted. Rosie advancing to LPN school nights, Bob coaching Little League with the Grands. Hank sobered some joining the meetings at the VFW, sharing war tales that bonded him with strangers, turning isolation to kinship. Tommy Jr. landed a desk job at the bank numbers, his solace marrying a girl from Pittsburgh, sweet but sharp, keeping his wild streak leashed. I kept waiting table stories from the booth, my therapy listening to truckers' woes, mirroring our own. But around 6,000 words closing this chapter of trials, the final peak for now, rose gentle then swelled. Oh, a well-named Carter's Malay speech on TV, echoing our fatigue when Tommy called from Dayton voice, cracking ma. I found him the salesman he's dying wants to meet before it's too late. The pull toward me, driving to Memphis alone, gas guzzling the Chevy across state lines, finding a frail man in a hospice bed, eyes like Tommy's pleading, tell my boy I loved him best I could. I didn't spill till Tommy just brought back a pocket watch engraved with initials, hugging my secret close, choosing peace over pandemonium resilience, meaning letting go of chains that bind too tight. Life's battles forge you, honey, from career wounds to family phantoms, but through the din, the heart learns to beat steady, hopeful amid the storm's rage. Oh, honey, as the 80s rolled in like a rusty pickup truck, sputtering on fumes, the struggles we'd weather started to yield ground to something softer, more like dawn breaking after a long night. Hank and I hunkered down in that old bungalow, patches on the roof and beans in the pot, but the grandbabies brought sunshine. Rosie's little ones scampering through our doors, tracking mud and mischief, their giggles a bomb on the raw spots. Reagan's voice boomed from the radio, talking morning in America with tax cuts and dreams. But for us, it was morning in the family too. Tommy Jr.'s bank job, steadying him with a wife named Liz, and their first a boy we called Hank, after his granddaddy strong-willed with a grin that melted butter. I quit the diner after 20 years, feet too sore for shifting gears, taking up babysitting the young guns in our yard, teaching them to shuck corn and spot constellations, naming the Big Dipper after Pa's stories from the stars. Hank mellowed with age, his limp a badge, not a burden, tinkering in the garage, sharing tools with Bob, who fixed up old bikes for the church raffle. Around 6,500 words into this winding path, the ties that bound us pulled tighter. Rosie finished her RN degree nights at the hospital, tending the sick, her hands gentle as Ma's used to be on my fevered brow. We threw a small party in the backyard, burgers on the grill, and a cake iced with Nurse Rosie, watching her beam in her cap and gown, the family circling close, cheers rising like yeast in dough. That night, Hank squeezed my hand under the table, his whiskey days long behind him, whispering, we raised a fighter, Ellie prouder than a peacock. It felt like resolution settling in the pieces fitting snug after years of jigsaw puzzles scattered by life's gales. The decade deepened with its own brand of hope, the Cold War thawing like ice in April glasnost, and perestroika buzzwords on the news. But closer to home, we mended fences long neglected. Tommy Jr. climbed the ladder at the bank manager, now suit crisp as new money. Liz birthing a girl we named after me, Elizabeth Jr., Little Ellie with Tommy's curls and a laugh like wind chimes. He and Hank fished the Lentangi weekends, now rod and reel, casting lines side by side, talking past the war scars, building a bridge over the old divides. Rosie and Bob bought a bigger place down the street, turning it into a hub for family suppers Thursdays, a tradition with pot roast and apple crisp stories flowing freer than the river. I started volunteering at the senior center, shattering quilts and yarns with widows like me, their tales echoing my own losses, but laced with the same quiet triumphs. One evening around 7,000 words, here's the peak that swelled my heart near to bursting, a breakthrough long overdue that washed away the last shadows of secrets. It was a crisp October day in '89, leaves crunching underfoot, when I gathered the grown kids in the living room, Rosie, Tommy Jr., and their spouses, coffee steaming on the side tables. My hands shook, but my voice held steady. Folks, there's a truth Pa told me before the war about Tommy, your uncle. He wasn't Pa's blood. Ma had a past with a wandering soul, but Pa raised him fierce as his own, and we chose family every step. Gasps rippled, but no storm, just questions soft as Cotton Rosie hugging me tight. Ma, why carry it alone? Tommy Jr. nodded. I always felt different, but loved all the same. Honk from his rocker chuckled low. Hell, I figured something brew when he whistled them southern tunes, but blood's thin waters deep if you stir it right. Tears flowed cathartic like rain on parched earth, unburdening the weight. I'd hauled for decades, turning shame to strength, a family revelation that knit us unbreakable forgiveness, the thread pulling it all taut. From that day, secrets lost their sting chatter, turning to curiosity about roots without the ache, the salesman's watch ticking on the mantle, a relic, not a regret. Resolution bloomed fuller into the 90s. The Gulf War flashing brief on TV. Our boys coming home quicker than Vietnam's drag, but it stirred old fears. Rosie sending care packages anyway, cookies and cards to remind them of home fires. Hank and I downsized some paint in the bungalow, fresh white with blue trim flowers in the beds, a victory garden, not into wartime days, but now for joy, not survival. The grandkids grew wild and wonderful. Little Hank, captain of the Pee Wee team, scoring touchdowns that had us hollering from the bleachers, while Ellie pieced quilts with me, her small hands learning the stitches of endurance. Tommy Jr. mentored at the bank, giving kids from rough homes a leg up, echoing how Hank pulled himself from career ruins. Around 7,500 words, hope took root in quiet victories. Rosie opened a clinic for low-income folks downtown, treating the uninsured with kindness. No questions asked, her cancer scare waiting years down the line. But for now, she's shown lead-in health fairs where I man the blood pressure booth, joking with neighbors, keep it low or the doc'll have my hide. Bob coached the high school team, instilling grit in teens, reminding me of Jimmy's Fire Channel safe. Family trips became ritual, driving the old Chevy to Mammoth Cave or Niagara Falls, marveling at God's handiwork, water roaring like our laughs over picnic ham. Hank's health held steady, keeping the demons at bay, his stories now wisdom, not woe shared at VFW meetings where young vets listened wide-eyed. Me, I took up painting watercolors of the fields, sunsets in hues of peach and gold, hanging them on walls, a testament to beauty amid the battles life's thrown our way. As the millennium loomed, the resolution solidified like maple syrup, slow and sweet. Y2K fears fizzled, harmless computers ticking on into 2000. Our family gathering for a millennium meal, turkey and fixins toasting, the future's bright, not buggy. Little Ellie started school reading aloud from Dr. Seuss, her voice clear as a bell, while little Hank tinkered engines like his granddaddy dreaming of NASA. Tommy Jr. adopted a boy from the system, a freckled kid named Max, folding him into our fold, no questions, just love expanding the circle wider. Rosie and Bob traveled to Ireland, chasing roots, her laughter and letters full of green hills and pub songs, sending postcards that warmed my windowsill. Hank and I celebrated 50 years wed in 98, the church packed with young guns and old friends, vows renewed, simple as pie, through wars and woes forevermore. Around 8,000 words, closing this arc of mending, the final notes rang hopeful. I wrote letters to Jimmy's old protest pals, sharing how his stand inspired Rosie's clinic, a legacy of justice flowing forward. Secrets? All aired like laundry on the line, dry and done, nothing left to hide, just truths embracing us tender. Through recessions and reunions, America's spirit mirrored ours, resilient folks pulling together post-Cold War booms, lifting boats like the tide. Resolution ain't an end, honey. It's the steady glow after storm clouds part, the heart finding peace in the patchwork we've sown with tears and triumphs alike. Oh, honey, as I rock here on this warm porch, swing creaking like an old friend, sharing secrets, the evening sun dipping, low painting, the sky in strokes of rose and gold. I can't help but look back over these 80-plus years with a heart full to brimming and eyes misty from the sheer weight of it all. Life's been a wild ride, hasn't it, from that shattering draft notice in 42 when Pa shipped out, leaving us with nothing but promises and a family secret tucked deep to the joys that bloomed later like wildflowers pushing through cracked concrete. I see now how them early heartbreaks, the wars that stole our men and the whispers of blood not binding us tight, they weren't just punishments from a fickle fate, no, they were the forge hammering us stronger shaping souls. Tough as boot leather, yet soft enough to hold the hurt. Pa teaching me that love don't need a birth certificate to count my showing endurance in her quiet ways, stitching quilts from scraps of sorrow, and Hank proving forgiveness can mend what bullets and betrayals tear asunder. Around 8,500 words into this rambling reflection, the wisdom settles gentle as dew. Resilience ain't some fancy word from books. It's the daily choice to rise with the rooster, even when your bones ache and your spirit's bruised, choosing kin over grudges, hope over despair in this big old America, where folks from every walk stumble but stand together. Look at how the threads wove through the decades, honey, the WWII ration books turning into Korea letters, then Vietnam telegrams, each one a scar, but also a story passed down like heirlooms to the grandbabies, now grown with their own young guns. Jimmy's fire for justice didn't die with him. It sparked Rosie's clinic, where she patches the forgotten, same as I patched jeans in lean times. Tommy Jr.'s wild youth tamed into mentoring boys at risk, showing them a path straighter than the one he walked. Them recessions, the 73 oil crunch, and the '08 crash, they pinched us hard, all right? Bills peeling like autumn leaves, but they taught sharing a pot of soup with neighbors. Bills bonds thicker than bank accounts. I remember the 90s best for that glow after the storm's Gulf War, quick and clean, reminding us prayers get answered swift sometimes, the family reunions by the river laughter echoing over the water, washing away the what-ifs about that Tennessee salesman, his shadow fading to nothing more than a footnote in our epic tale. Secrets spilled out in that living room gathering didn't shatter us, they set us free, turning whispers into roars of understanding. We chose this family, we said, and oh, the peace that followed light as a summer breeze. America's mirrored that too, honey, from the Great Depression's grit to the booms and busts. We've always bounced back, folks, rolling up sleeves after hurricanes or heartaches, pulling wagons together, because that's the Yankee Doodle spirit deep in our bones. But let's talk resilience up close, honey, because it's the quiet hero in every chapter, the way Hank's limp slowed him but never stopped his laugh, the way I carried past truth for decades without letting it crush me, turning it instead into a shield for Tommy, protecting what mattered most. Around 9,000 words now, and here's a Pete that still warms me like a hearth fire on a frosty morn, reflecting on the grandbaby's weddings, little Hank marrying Sarah in '05, the church overflowing with kin vows, ringing true through thick and thin like grandma's stories. He said, making me dab my eyes with a hanky. Mikey Tommy Jr.'s boy came home from his Iraq tour in '07, tales of sand and brotherhood, echoing Pa's foxhole yarns, but with tech twists, emails, and Skype keeping us close. No silence like the old letter waits. Rosie's cancer battle in 10 chemo chair, her throne of sorts, she quipped, beaded fierce, surrounding herself with our circle prayers and potlucks, pulling her through remission sweeter than victory pie. Even the pandemic, 20 isolating us like hermits in caves, we zoomed suppers, shattering recipes and remembrances. Tommy Jr.'s cough turning miracle when the doc said he'd make it family, the vaccine stronger than any shot. Them modern woes, the social media storms and economic wobbles, they test us new, but the lessons hold. Talk it out, forgive quick, love loud, cause tomorrow's promised to no one but hope's the currency we all can spend free. Reflecting deeper, honey, I see the hopeful tone. Life's insisted on shining through the clouds, no matter how dark. From small-town Ohio roots where cornfields whispered possibilities to the grandkids scattered across states, chasing dreams in Silicon Valleys or Wall Street cubicles, we've carried that folksy faith forward, believing in second chances and community hands. Eddie Hanks passing at 12 left a hole big as the Grand Canyon, but filling it came gradual through VFW visits where I shared his career grit with wide-eyed vets and through painting those watercolor sunsets that say this too shall pass. Lily Tommy Jr.'s daughter from his youthful slip, now a mama herself, visiting with her toddler Emma, who climbs my lap begging for tales, her eyes sparkling like fireflies, reminding me the cycle spins joyful generations, linking arms across the miles. Around 9,500 words, the reflection peaks soft and sure. Last summer's reunion down by the Olentangy tents pitched, as s'mores roasting stories circling the fire from Pa's war to Mikey's tours, laughter mixing with tears as we toasted to the ones who taught us tough. No more hiding, just honoring the path. The salesman's watch ticking beside Pa's dog tag, symbols of choices that built us, not broke us. Hope's the real inheritance, honey, passed in hugs and howdy's the American dream. Not mansions or millions, but hearts resilient, beating steady through the tempest. As this yarn wends to its close around 10,000 words, my old heart swells with gratitude for the ride, the heartbreaks that hooked us deep, the struggles that stretched us wide, and the resolutions that rooted us firm. Lessons? Hold your kin close, secrets shared, lighten the load, and resilience is just love and work boots trudging on no matter the mud. We've seen America's face change from victory parades to protest marches, from factory whistles to fiber optic hums. But the core stays true, folks helping folks, dreams deferred, but never ditch hope, the North Star guiding through nights long and lonesome. I'm hopeful still, darling, peeking at Emma's future bright as a new dawn, knowing she'll carry these tales forward, whispering them to her own. If this story tugged your heartstrings the way retelling it tugs mine, share it with your loved ones, that far-flung cousin or busy sib. Let's keep these grandma yarns alive, sparkling like stars, passing wisdom down the line. After all, that's the magic. Stories connecting us, mending the miles, turning strangers to family in this grand old land. God bless y'all. Keep loving fierce and hoping higher. Thank you for listening from this rocker to your screen.